Open ko na nga.
Hello.
Ay, hello!
We're live.
We're live! What? Sabi ko, hindi pa. Ay, so, joke lang. Hello!
Hello,
Hello! If
everyone.
you can see us right now, please comment below. And then, we actually won't see it. So, we
But
probably, because we're very distracted right now. Ayan. Sige.
so we're relying on other people to tell us what's happening.
Yeah.
Pero
You can see my
go
dog
ahead.
behind. For those who are following my Twitter saga on the dog, on my dog, he is back. He is right behind me. So, yun lang. He is home now. Anyway, ayan. Okay. We can, ayan. You can see him behind me. Okay. Ayan, yeah. See you. Yeah, he's
Ayan.
home. He's home na. Okay, hello. So, okay. We'll introduce ourselves. Then. So, hi. Welcome to Heat Level Zero Represent. This is our panel for our series that on 2020. So I am Anna Tejano. I'm also known by another name. I am, I guess, ano ba? I mean, talaga, I think partly it's kind of my brand to write Level Zero. Although technically the next book is Level One. But yeah, so yun. I'm Anna. I've written 3 books. The surprise for the 4th book is actually later in this panel. And also edited, hi Six, edited this, the Christmas Anso. Yeah. So hi. Ulit.
Hi. Hello, everyone. I'm Celestine Trinidad, and my brand isn't really writing level zero romances right now, but I guess my brand is writing doctor romances, I suppose, because I'm a doctor. I have written Ghost of a Feeling, which is about a medical student and a pharmacist. And I also wrote a story in the anthology that Anna edited, Monito Monita. So it's also about medical students. So yeah, I think that's yun na siguro yung brand ko. And also currently working on an anthology of romances
About
about doctors by doctors. So also by with me on the team are Angeli Domato, Suzette De Borja, and Erica and EK Gonzalez.
yay.
So yeah, hello.
Oh, super. Excuse the awkwardness. Totoo lang, we're not very ready for this, supposedly.
Okay.
Okay.
Wala. And I'm in
Okay.
this room right now kasi there's a construction going on outside.
Welcome to
So
the new normal. Okay. We can go ahead and so basically, okay, the story behind this panel is, so again, we call this panel Heat Level Zero Represent. And to be honest, the idea of this panel came from Nina V. Esguerra when we were talking about the what else can we talk about during for this month. And of course, because I know that I've always written Heat Level Zero, I knew I had to volunteer. I wasn't really forced, but I felt like, okay, I really should do this. But yeah, so and then I just kind of roped Leslie in to do it with me.
not really. I also volunteered for it naman after much reflection and self and an epiphany of sorts about myself. So,
Okay, and siguro one more thing about this, I think also because although in our script this will be mentioned again later, but because in reality when Romance Class started in 2013, I think most or all of it are actually Heat Level Zero. So basically, we'll be discussing this afternoon what exactly do we mean by that, and also the terms that we use to refer to this kind of romance. And then we'll give, yeah, yes, sabi ni Six, we were voluntold to do it. Yes. Masunurin naman kaming mga bata. So, so we will talk about yan. What do we, like, what exactly do we mean by this? And also, um, and what are the terms? Because there are many terms used for this kind of romance. And also, and exact, why do we need this in this time? Yun. So, we feel like actually this is a little bit, feeling namin it's a serious panel compared to the first few ones. Pero we will try to be. And we will also show some examples. I'm excited. Okay, hold on. I hope my slide works. Okay. So, um, so based on some of our research, um, there are many terms used for giving ratings for romance novels. So one of the things, I think this is from Romantic Times magazine, they have this sensuality rating. Now, apparently there are more categories, but this is the major one. So there's mild, which means may or may not include sex. Doesn't have anything explicit. And then next level is hot. So it ranges from love making to explicit sex. And then last is scorcher, which borders on erotic or very explicit sex. But the thing with ratings like this is they're a little bit open to interpretation. So sometimes it's vague, open to interpretation of readers and authors. So for example, you say there something is mild, but it still says that it may or may not include sex. So what if the reader is looking for something very not there's nothing there, and then surprise it's there, but it's still labeled as mild. And I remember looking back, I think there was one time there was a list that has like not exactly heat level zero romances, but I think mild romances. Because when I was looking at it, parang this doesn't feel like it's mild. Parang when I remember reading this, parang I don't think this is mild. But also, like, again, it could also be culture, all other things that could be that could be open to interpretation. So what happened is when romance class started getting bigger, ayan, there was a heat heat levels in romance. So in 2016 yeah, 2016-ish, at least that's the one in Facebook group. We have 4 heat levels. So and then there are labels for it. So we start with 0, which is clean. So hand holding, kissing, considered YA. And then you move up, so sweet. So syempre hindi ko nakikita ng malaki. I'm so sorry, guys. I am getting a little old. Char. But yeah. But anyway, so every level, it gets hotter and hotter in short. So, di ba, parang it gets, even in the way that it was presented. So, parang every level has a particular word that is connected to it. And then in 2019, the this was revised and changed into no more description of words, but more on the if sex is present or not in the book. And it was removed partly, well, mostly because if you think about it, when you say that a romance is clean, does it mean that other romances are not clean? Diba? Because you say it's clean. Or if you say a romance is sweet, so level 1 in the old chart, or even in other charts, in other sensuality charts, if you say that one is sweet, if may sex na siya, does it mean hindi na siya sweet? When it doesn't really work that way. Yun. So Leslie, may sasabi ka ba? So, dire-diretso ako.
Yeah, I mean, I think the decision to change the categories is that so the heat levels will not be um, there will be no accompanying judgment with these levels kasi nga
Hmm.
if you say 'di ba na something has a particularly sexually explicit scene it's hindi na siya sweet or if you call it but we'll be handling that in in the next panel pa nga pala. Pero yeah. So, but that's really the why that decision was made by Romance
Mhm.
Class. Yeah.
Yes. Ayan. The graphics are made by Miles, by the way.
Yes,
So,
the these really nice graphics are made by Miles.
yes.
Great.
Okay. So we go to this one. Parang we actually we weren't sure if we wanted to put this in. Pero yeah, I think it also bears a discussion. Kasi for example, nga, like what we said, if we say sweet, Does it mean if we label a heat level 0 romance as sweet, does it mean anything that is level 1 and up hindi na siya sweet? Or if you say that a level is clean, does it mean the other books with more sexual content are not clean? And then I will kind of veer a little bit to my Catholic roots. Because sex isn't dirty naman. So you can say it's clean. This is clean, this is dirty because it's not dirty. Maybe some depictions of it may seem like it is, but it's not. And then finally, our word, hindi siya nakikita, but I'm actually wearing a shirt that says chastity. Kasi on brand tayo. But chaste is a term that's been coming up recently. And it's actually, chaste can actually work. But I am bringing back my Catholic roots again. If we're going to go to the actual strict definition of chaste, then ibig sabihin, yung kissing is actually not allowed. If like the couple being in one bed together is not allowed. All of those other things, if we're going to stick to the very strict definition of chaste, then it's not going to be a very kilig romance novel. Yun. So it can be used, but I feel like personally it also feels like in the other end a particular piece will not fit. So and then yun. So and which I'll bring, we have this one, I read this one book that's called The Secret Life of Sarah Hollenbeck by Bethany Turner. So the story of this one is the girl used to be, yes, I'm wearing a blaze shirt. The girl she used to be an erotic romance author and she had a conversion. And then when she got converted, she wondered, why can't where are the books for Christian women like me? And there's one line that really resonated there for me because obviously I'm writing romance, and then she asked, why can't Christian romance be sexy? And I totally agree because when you actually Google and look for quote unquote Christian romance, if you notice, there's a lot of Amish romance, historical romance, which I don't actually, well, for me because I really like contemporary. So for me it feels like there's this particular gap that we would want to fill. But unfortunately, some of those contemporary ones are not sexy at all. Hindi sila nakakakilig. Minsan, it's very judgy, which we don't want because, yun nga, actually, we'll discuss it later, but sometimes those romance books are actually also very judgy. So parang, what do we have, diba? What can people who are looking for this particular romance will have, ganon. Dami ko na sinabi. Okay. Leslie, wala ka masasabihin.
Yeah, actually, yun lang. I just also want to reiterate kasi ang opposite ng clean would be dirty. Yun yan, sex isn't dirty, I mean, in itself. So, yun nga, so the tone now would be less judgment on uh on that, less than on the feelings kasi
Mhm.
um you know, any book that has higher heat levels would also be rich in feelings and killing and sweetness. So it's just these new these new ways of categorizing it is just simply stating the presence or absence of these scenes, which is what readers would want to know naman kasi yun. So and also something, it, it also doesn't um it also doesn't necessarily mean if it's of a certain heat level, it's already a good romance. So, or a bad romance. So, Lady Gaga. So, yun. So, it's really just a statement of the presence or absence of something. So,
In short, it's
yes.
like content warnings then, in a way.
Yes.
Diba?
It
So,
is.
mm. Yeah.
it is a content warning because there are some people who that would be a particular content warning too.
Mhm.
So yeah, we'll also go into
Talk
that
about it
later.
now.
Yeah.
Okay. So we like defining stuff. So let's go back to like a definition of romance. So I
So,
really
dapat may labels kasi.
label. Okay, so obviously romance, we know that it focuses on romantic love of two people. And I will say, sige, sometimes there's three or more. And again, with a very satisfying, happy and satisfying ending. So we know naman that the happy and satisfying ending is a given. So let's jump a little bit on what the first part of the statement. So romantic love. And at the risk of sounding like we are doing para kaming slam book. So we can let's talk about it. Let's talk a little bit about what love is. And we will go to um we will go to let's call wisdom of an old saint. Actually, my original script I wrote here. Why are we going to a celibate dude? But in fairness, the celibate dudes actually know some things. So, um, Saint Thomas Aquinas, one of the most well-known theologians in the church, has this very simple definition of love, and basically it's to love is to will the good of the other. So you want what is good for the other person. It's not necessarily what's good for yourself alone. Your decisions are actually based on what the other person needs, what the other person. So sometimes it doesn't mean like if you know in some romance novels, diba, sometimes they have to let go of the other person and then eventually obviously they'll get back together. But if that's what the other person needs at that particular point, then that's what love will do. Um yun. That's how I define love. And then um to quote another celibate dude. When you think a person's rightful due is to be treated as an object of love, not as an object of use. At the end of the day, when we talk about romance, when we talk about love, at the end of it, the other what we are writing, what we are reading in very good romance books is really um, that the other person, you treat the other person with love. You don't see them as an object, a prize that you win. You don't see them as just an addition to your life. They are someone that receives the love that you can. Yeah.
or someone that you can just merely derive pleasure from.
Mhm.
Ano.
Yeah. Mhm. So that's base that those two lang. It's basically what we were actually looking for in in not just in our relationships but in the good romance novels. We look for like li and love our love interests who will put the good of the main character first and vice versa. And we look for we want to read in our characters in the stories that they treat the other person right. 'Di ba? So we want them to, not manipulating anyone, not making, controlling anyone or making bad, like forcing them to make bad decisions or forcing them to make choices that they don't want to make. Yun, yun. Nakita ko na, so napatingin ako sa comments. Yes, define the relationship. Okay. And then, if you notice, those dun sa two definitions na yun, if you notice, there's no mention of sex. Which brings us to this part. That actually, when you think about it, sex isn't really everything in a relationship. Feeling ko tuloy napaka-controversial. But 'di ba? It's part of it, but it's not the be all and end all of it. And that's basically what um um heat level zero romances kind of say focus on, not necessarily. I mean, obviously sometimes you'd imagine siguro naman after when the book is over, we don't know what they're doing in our you can fill in the blanks. But yeah, so in short, when we talk about heat level zero, it focuses on the other parts of the relationship. Yeah. Leslie.
Yeah,
And then
I really have nothing to add. Sige.
yes, oh, it's your
Ayun, sorry. So, yun. So, while we were preparing for this panel, so we I also started looking into a different perspective kasi Tina already, sorry, Anna already already uh, covered the religious aspect of it, but that's not really all that um, that would factor into the writing and reading of heat level zero romances. So I came across this particular quote from an article on asexuality. So too often sexual and romantic relationships take the center stage and are presented as the most meaningful relationship you can have. So just to clarify what that article was about. So that article was discussing the different other spectrum of asexuality. So to give since I already introduced that, just to give a few definitions, someone who identifies as asexual experiences little to no actually no to no sexual attraction, while demisexuality and gray sexuality are terms that um, are also different. Demisexuality refers to people who only experience sexual attraction to people they have close emotional connections with, while gray sexuality is the midpoint between asexuality and a person who is sexual, so alliosexual. They rarely experience sexual attraction or they experience it with a low intensity. Now, we have to also to recognize that there are some of us who identify as this. So and that article was saying that sometimes when we speak of relationships, so romantic relationships in particular, it's as if something that does not have or culminate in something sexual um, is is less compared to a relationship that has it. So even in real life, um, we we have experienced that. Um, you see, there's such a thing as slut shaming. On the opposite spectrum of it, there's prude shaming. So, would you like to share your own experiences with it first?
No, I
Yeah,
used to
biglang
be in
binanggit.
ano, binalek, thank you. No, I used to be in an all men team. So siyempre 'di ba, I was the only girl and it sometimes it would feel like, I mean, obviously men, so but sometimes it would feel like even when I'm catching up with other people, like if you don't have a relationship, it almost feels like you're not fulfilled, that you're less of a person. I mean, obviously we get to the point at our age, diba, that you're not married, so you feel like you're less of a person. You're less of a valid contributor to the society because you're not yet married or you don't have a family yet. And it's often sometimes we go to sometimes we meet with friends, we meet with relatives, diba? And yun, parang it's always, or sometimes, siguro, going back to that prude shaming thing, I remember, parang, I think, one of my old teammates we went out as we were teasing, and and they were saying, masyado ka kasing banal. Ako parang, okay, bawal. Or yung parang, wag landi ka naman ng onte. Parang ako, that thing about what if, for example, I'm just not attracted to anyone right now. I just don't like anyone right now. It doesn't make me less of a person. It doesn't, just because I am not in a relationship, doesn't mean I am not a valid contributor to the society. Yan.
And also to to keep the terms separate then. One can be asexual and but not aromantic. So one can have not you simply don't have you're not attracted to anyone but you want a romantic relationship. So since we're talking about romance, fine, we have to also keep those two separate. So um yeah, if I when it comes to to prude shaming. So sige, since Anna shared her own personal experience, I also felt that as I was like through the years. Parang if you haven't had so nahiya bigla. If you haven't had sex at a particular age, it's as if you're less of a person. You're and not just less of a person. You're less attractive. You're less
Mhm.
yung if especially if you don't want it for any reason.
Mhm.
For religion for reasons for religion for your own particular personal culture, your and even your orientation, if you're asexual, demisexual, and gray sexual. If you don't want it, it's as if you're not normal. So, and that defeats the purpose being of recognizing the diversity of everyone's experiences. I and it's as if like in that particular quote, parang kung if you've had a relationship that doesn't have sex, it's like um it's less. parang yung parang hindi ka pa ba niya inaano, parang hindi ka niya mahal, ganyan, di ba? Parang ganun. Or yung paano lang yun lang ba ginagawa niyo? Ano kayo toddlers? That's something that I've actually heard. But yung
Toddler.
parang sabi ko, ano ba? so, sorry, I didn't want, and ayoko mag-rant. Pero you do really hear that from other people. Sometimes they even like throw the words yung prude and chased around like it's an insult. And when it should it be? And this is actually the whole point of our panel. and recognition that people have different desires, different
Mhm.
experiences, whether for any whether for a number of reasons. Yeah.
Mhm.
So and yeah, it doesn't make your experience any less valid, less romantic, even
Mhm. Yeah, and
without it.
also, and you think about it, well, 'di ba, love is the main point. Yes. We didn't
Yes, that is. Wala
although
pa nga eh, meron pa.
we
I
didn't
haven't
really
experienced
mean
that.
to. Wala 'to sa script, parang earlier today, parang wag na natin share. But here we are. Here we are now.
I don't
And
know.
then,
Maybe my one of my exes can hear this, so I don't want. So,
but yeah, also, di ba, while love is the main point of romance novels, there's a lot of people who are actually not comfortable reading sex on the page. Or, again, because of religion, they would rather not read that. I know personally, sometimes when I want to push books to my community. I feel like sometimes it's a little hard for them. I mean, obviously we don't kung ayaw nyo, di wag. But sometimes you want them to read it, but also we know that some of them might not be very comfortable with it. And also, I think also if you've had like bad past experiences with sex, then maybe this isn't something that you'd also want to read. Like what we said earlier, it is content warnings. So maybe you don't this isn't the thing that you'd want to relive while reading a book. And then also another thing that we thought of is obviously when you want to start, younger readers to read romance, obviously there's YA, but as they grow up, we want to have them just have more choices. If do they want to heat it up a little bit, or if they want to stay here, then it's also fine. So that's why heat level zero is important. And because in general, wait, ay nantay ko lumabas yung slide. Because when you think about it, romance is supposed to be a safe space for anyone. We talk about how romance class is a safe space for us, right? So in that sense, our books, the content of it, should there be sex or not, should also become a safe space for anyone who wants to come in and look for romance. Go, Leslie. Meron ka.
yeah, yun. So yun nga.
Ayun, sorry.
So
Next
we
slide
were
para mas
saying Yeah, ayan, yan.
Uh-huh.
Nawala kasi yung leading slides.
Sorry.
Hindi tayo
But yeah. So, yeah.
choice is
Mhm.
valid. Yeah. Ay,
Go.
sige, go, ano.
And for me, I think yun, if whatever
Okay, so,
as an author, whatever you decide to write, it's valid. It's also valid. It doesn't mean sometimes I admit sometimes it feels like it feels like parang everyone's doing it. I should probably write the same thing. But personally, I know it is not comfort. It's not something I'm good at writing, and two, it's not something I'm comfortable writing. And also, yun, if you are a reader, if you don't like reading that, then it's also perfectly fine. It all depends
mhm.
on, your choices. Your choice would always be valid.
Yes. Ay, yun na, parang, it's like, it's not wrong, to read something with sex in it. I mean, yun din naman yung the point that we want to make. It's okay if you want to read that, but it's also okay if you don't want to read it, or as this is also a romance writing panel, also if you don't want to write it. Kasi yun din, I to just to share maybe partly why I was struggling a bit with my current WIPs kasi work in progresses kasi I wasn't really sure if I wanted to put um to up the heat level a bit more kasi I was worried that maybe it would make it less less romantic and if I didn't go there, but that is the point that you want to make. It's sex does not equate exactly to romance, and you something a book can be perfectly romantic with still it being heat level zero. Then actually that's a challenge. That's actually that's not easy to do, but it's a valid choice. And as a reader, it is also valid if you don't want that, just as long as you don't judge people also who want to read it.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. Yeah, when we were conceptualizing this panel, we didn't want to be preachy because that's wrong as well. And romance, among all the genres, actually has always been the genre that recognizes the diversity of experience of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we want to keep it that way, and that it's perfectly valid to read and write something when you want it. Because isn't romance also the same way? And when we can also like delve into the concepts of consent and
Mm-hmm.
agency. Kasi with romance, um, you a good romance must have both consent and agency from the characters. So, and well, sex positivity also covers that
Yeah.
when the characters do want it, do,
Mm-hmm.
do want it. So, and also I wanted to mention that there may be also characters who say have had sex, but they don't necessarily want in a particular context, not of the story, and or to represent people who um, tried it before and then said nope, not that's not what I want. So, diba? So it's okay if
Yep.
if you've had it and you don't want it again. Diba?
Mm-hmm.
So there, so that's your choices are valid. You are valid.
Mm-hmm.
That's
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 basically it.
and you will be loved despite your no, you will be loved because of your choices.
Mhm.
Not despite it, but because of it.
Yeah. Are we going to cry?
Naiyak na ako kasi nisip ko lahat ng mga lahat ng mga
It's catharsis na to, catharsis. But yeah, so basically what you mean is heat level zero does not mean kilig level is also zero because, di ba? It's absolutely true. And we will actually give you some examples right now. Dito kami excited. So, sige. Sige, ako muna. So, what, for
Mm-mm.
example, we start with like one move. We start with movies. So, if you're familiar, this is Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley. And this is the proposal in the rain. And if you think about it, obviously all of Jane Austen's books never had that, never had any sex scene, but it's super killing. And this particular scene, when I watched it again, parang, huh, why, what's happening? But yeah, see, it's fraught with tension and like a lot of sexual tension, but they didn't even hold each other at this point at all. So yun, nakikita ko yung reaction ng mga tao. Sorry. Pinili ko talaga to for this.
Ito yung good research for our
Yes,
for
yes, this was
our
super
panel.
fun. And then, eto, bibigay ko na sa'yo, Leslie, yung next. And this one, I know everyone's familiar with this one.
Yeah, yun. So, yung isa pa with Feelings, which is currently my favorite Filipino romance film. Current kasi alam mo, lalo na when ngayon na ang dami-dami nating pinapanood na movies na Filipino na hindi naman romance talaga. So this so nice, particularly this scene. So yun, we wanted to so for those who haven't watched it, sorry spoiler, pero yung context kasi of this scene. So Carlo Aquino is hard of hearing, and yung scene before that is that meron siyang delivery na napapasok, and then he instructed yung delivery guy na i-text siya para kasi yun nga he won't be able to hear the doorbell if ever. So but then yung delivery guy just kept on did not hear him, tapos ganun pa rin, nagdo-doorbell pa rin, and then he only kept insisting on talking to Maine when Maine came to sort of help him out. Tapos so what Maine did was to connect yung, yung doorbell to these Christmas lights. So so when people would ring yung mag-ring ng doorbell, ay light up yung room, and you would know that there would be someone there. Super nice. So scene na yun because it's my God, yeah, and yun yung niya yung poster niya. Tapos nung nakita ko yun dun sa movie, para oh my God, yun pala yung
Yun
scene
pala
na
yun.
yun. Yun pala yung significance. So, sobrang kilig na kilig ako. Ay, kilig
Tapos
na kilig.
mangiyak-ngiyak pa siya.
Oh, yun na yung scene na
Did
mga
it
iyak.
for me.
Para,
But yeah, this is a perfect example of love is doing the good for the other. Kasi this is for his
mm-mm.
good. Na so people, he wouldn't feel like he's less of a person because he can't open the door just because he
Mm-mm.
couldn't hear it. So this is
Mm-mm.
making a way for the main making a way for him to be able to do what he can do normally without judgment. And yes,
Mm-mm.
nakaka Yan talaga,
Yes.
pinili ko talaga 'tong screenshot na 'to. Sinadya ko talaga yan.
Yeah, so that's
Yes.
an example of a scene na actually wala nga naman, I mean they didn't really even in this particular scene walang touching or anything, but it's super kilig. So yun. And si Carlo
Nag-Miss lang
expressive
siya.
eyes Aquino.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And then the next example is a classic. This has got to believe. And to be honest, yung what we wanted for this, I wanted to get sana yung sinok scene, that actual part that okay, so for those who haven't watched it, Claudine here has been Claudine Tony has been parang she's getting to that age that in her family merong superstition na if you get to this age, you don't get married, you will never get married. So parang what happened is, and Rico here is a photographer, and then she's always like the bridesmaid. So parang they had a project na sige, I'll make you ikaw yung magiging subject ko, and then we'll find you a date, we'll find you a boyfriend para makasal ka na. And then si Claudine, her sign para malaman niya in love na siya is isinukin siya. And very high yung standards dito ni Claudine. Tapos, ang fun, actually, when I was trying to get the like screenshots for this movie, super dami. Like that entire montage that they were baking, and dapat pala yun yung pinakita ko kasi Rico yan arms. uh, so she was crying, pero yung that entire time na parang their friendship is growing as he is trying to find someone for her. And then eventually, parang at one family event, so parang they were having fun. I think nandun na si Perry noon the other guy. They accidentally kissed and then sininok si Claudine. Tapos parang everyone around them knew that they're actually in love with each other, but they're not admitting it. So that actually this entire movie is all that sexual tension, but nothing, they had this very torrid kiss though. But yeah, but yeah. So this entire thing then, that like the small things, I think a lot of what we mean in like heat level zero is the small things that we just the small things that are really kilig. When minsan hindi pa, they're not even touching at all. They're just looking at each other. It's like, oh my God, ganon.
And I think that also ties nga pala to yung different love languages of people.
Yep. Mhm.
So yeah, there yung love languages like acts of service, ano yun? Words, yeah. So
Words of
yung mga
affirmation,
acts of, yeah,
quality
words
time.
of affirmation, yan. So yung a scene can be kilig if you speak
The
another
love language.
person's love
Yep.
language.
Yes.
Yan. Yan.
So ayan, ako pala mag-explain ng next. So I know a lot of people will react to this one.
I give all the K-dramas
Okay,
to
so
Hannah.
if we notice, if for people who watch a lot of K-drama, we know that these are mostly very low heat, like heat level zero, most of it. And I remember when I was watching Crash Landing on You, when I got to this scene, pumapalakpak ako sa bahay. Kasi, so the scene here, si Seri is already in North Korea. She was with the titas of the town, titas of North Korea. They were shopping in the market and she gets lost. And then so Captain comes home. He can't find her. They were saying we left her at the market. So he goes running and backtrack a little bit. The first time she stayed in his house, she was saying that she needed a scented candle to sleep. So that first night, he went home with a candle, but it's not scented candle. So this part, so she's lost in the market, and di ba she's in North Korea, a South Korean woman in North Korea. Obviously, she can't just be lost because she might get in trouble. So what happens is she's there. The captain runs to the market, finds a stall with candles, gets one, and then he raises it up para they could see each other. And then there, when they finally got to see each other, the first thing that he says is, "This is a scented candle this time." Tapos diba that entire scene lang na parang he was looking for her in the dark. Ah, he made that effort to look for her. And her being vulnerable found strength in whatever he was doing, even if it's as simple as, holding a scented candle up. So yun. This is maybe partially why I like scented candles right now.
Gusto ko na siyang
Hmm.
panoorin.
Panoorin mo na siya. And then next, okay, the next scene we will give, this is very familiar to a lot. This is from Healer. Nantay ko yung mga
Si
comments nila.
Chango. Ayun.
This is from Healer. So the background story of this is shucks, I can't remember their names na. But anyway, so si Ji Chang-wook, I'll use their real names. He has multiple parang identities. He's a secret agent, and he's also pretending to be but parang he was watching this girl kasi she knows something. And then this girl is a news reporter. Tapos parang she's been following his identity as Healer. And then at this scene, parang she was requesting, can we go on a date? Tapos syempre parang paano siya magde-date? Eh, secret identity niya nga yun. So what he sets it up, they watch a movie, so she's sitting there and he's right at the back. Tapos parang ang instruction, she can't look around. Basta manood lang siya ng movie. Parang there's a phone, there's a toy. And then tapos na yung movie, so okay. So inisip niya, hindi na niya nakita. On her way out of the cinema, the guy went to the door, nagkasabay sila. So palabas na siya, si guy nandito. Tapos the guy reached for her hand. Tapos naghawakan lang sila ng kamay ng ganyan for a long time. And they can't look at each other. Tapos yun lang yun, naghawakan lang sila ng kamay. Tapos parang, but I know for the fact that a lot of people who watch this, see, a lot of people who watch this particular scene, parang we're all just dying of kilig. And actually, there were more other like holding hand scenes. Like there's a scene in the elevator na the girl is scared of elevators, hinawakan din niya yung kamay. Those small moments lang, parang, oh my God, why? I can't believe it. Ganon. So yun. See, something as simple as holding hands actually can be very kilig. Like, yun, magpapalakpakan na lang tayong lahat. So yun. And the last example, ayun, ano yun? If a man won't rent a cinema so you can watch a movie exclusively, what is the point? Okay, the last one is this is obviously Paul also know this is Goblin, and I chose this particular scene. This is when they were in Canada, and she was going around just exploring kasi diba, she just wants to go around. And then he was sitting near the fountain and reading. And then she comes back. And then when she's coming back, I think ito yung part that he was making the pedestrian lane light up. Tapos he was just watching her. Tapos may background sound that he was reading a poem. May binabasa niya na poem in that book. And then that's the particular part actually he fell in love with her, but actually he kind of didn't realize it. He didn't want to admit it for like a long time after. But this part, yun lang. Lumapit si girl, tapos nakatingin lang siya. Tapos nahulog yung leaf. Tapos yun, in love na siya. So, di ba, something like this, na parang, di ba, they didn't even talk a lot here. Parang si girl super unaware that he is actually falling in love with her boyfriend.
Actually,
Okay.
mga K-dramas
Hmm.
in general are very good at this. Yung
Yes.
the little moments, the tender, soft moments na sobrang kilig
Oo.
na kilig. Yun.
Like,
They're really...
sometimes, there was one na, halimbawa, he wants to win her a toy from, yun sa parang claw, sa ano to, What's Wrong with Secretary Kim, and
Yeah, yeah.
ganong thing. So parang he wouldn't stop, and di ba he was like super executive. That's I'm not that. So yun, they're just really tender and soft moments, as she said in the comments. So yun. Okay, so we'll move on. We'll go to a book. So I will give it to Leslie.
Ayan. So, Ana gave it to me kasi nasa akin yung book niya. So, this book, like never before. Yeah, ayan, yeah, also on the screen. So, Melissa Tag is one of our new favorite romance authors na she's a Christian romance author. And what I like about the books is that they're not preachy, and um, they're also very very kilig. So there's this particular scene in the book that's actually what you see in the cover na kasi it followed after yung LIC Logan was had a bad day with his in-laws.
Yung
Yeah,
father.
yeah. So he didn't know why, but he just suddenly went over to the MC's house, si Amelia, and and it was cold. They're in Iowa, so
Good.
it's very cold, and she was making s'mores, and um and she invited him in to her room, and her room, di ba? Her room
Yung
yung
progress.
ayan dun. Then and it's a very and that scene was very tender. He started telling her about kasi he's a widower, so he told her how about his wife and about his ex-wife, and also about everything that happened. And then let me maybe um,
Maybe the part of it.
read a part of it, like um, and he couldn't say any more, lost in the pain that racked him. For once he let the anguish heave against his ribs and escape in quiet shudders and hot tears he couldn't see through. All he could do was feel grief and release. And Amelia's hands sliding over his back and her face burying in his neck. I'm sorry. She cut him off with a shake of her head, his tears landing in her hair, her other arm wound around the front of him. And he didn't know how much time passed, 5 minutes, 10, maybe more, as 2 years worth of heartache and remorse poured from him until he felt emptied. bereft and undone. Still, with his free hand, he reached for a blanket, orange and woolly, managed to drape it over their huddled form, and then kept his arm around her. Waited until he could push words from his hollowed lungs. So, it's just a very tender scene. When I saw that scene, tapos, yun pala yung cover. Parang so, so, so I think also that scene, how something can be romantic. Yes, my library. So how something can be romantic is, to me, in certain books, when yung that moment when the characters parang, um yung show their true selves to the character, parang lahat ng mga nire-repress nila, lahat ng and they feel safe enough to say to the other character, and I think that's beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. So those soft tender moments. Yeah.
Oo. Sa share ko na nga, there's this other part in this book that I can't
uh,
find in my
I,
copy, in my Kindle copy here. So there's this part, although medyo sad siya.
I can look for that.
Yeah. So what happens is, hold on. They were at a hotel. So kasama nila yung kid ni Logan. And then Amelia already kind of knew that they can't be together. So parang they were in two rooms, tapos there was a connecting door. So she was there. She could hear him singing to his daughter. Tapos parang she knew that yun nga, she has to let go. Because Logan is a speechwriter, right? Speechwriter siya.
Speechwriter,
And then
senator
yeah,
speechwriter.
parang
Ben's.
Ben. But he's about to get into like a biggest political move. Parang he was about to get promoted to a presidential race. And then what happens is he has to go home kasi binigay sa kanya yung newspaper. And Amelia is the editor of the newspaper. And then what happens is, so hotel, talagang hinahanap ko pa siya. I can't find it. Anyway.
Ay,
So,
hanapin ko.
so parang they were in a hotel, and then so the door, she could hear him singing a little, and then she knew that okay, I can't be with him anymore. What happens is, tas mamaya-maya kumatok si Logan, tapos parang let's hang out, and then she was saying I can't, I'm already in my pajamas, I don't have my makeup on, and he was saying it's okay, I've seen you in your pajamas, I've seen you without makeup on. But she was refusing. So what happens is, there's a door between them. They sat down on the floor. Magkalikod sila and there's this door. And Logan says, then let's just talk. And then, so they started talking through the door. Tapos, nung pinabasa ko yun, parang, bakit? Bakit? Oh, bakit masakit? Bakit ganon? But yun, so that thing, I remember when I read that, parang sobrang galing naman ito. Gusto ko rin magsulat ng ganitong scene. Yun. But yeah, so yeah, we really recommend her. She is in KU and inscribed. Yun talaga. Okay. Yun. So but see, those things na parang very soft, very tender moments of getting to know each other, ganyan. And then another book before we go to the other books that we're talking about. Go, ikaw ulit ka.
Yeah, and Swept Off My Feet by Ines Bautista Yao. So, I think Ines Bautista Yao is one of the authors that one of the go-to authors when we talk about Heat Level Zero. Then, and this is one of my particular favorites in Swept Off My Feet. It's a young adult novel. Wait, sorry, bigla, hindi pala ako prepared, wait lang. So, yun, and while it's still uploading, while I was doing research for this, I was listening to the live readings, and there's this particular live reading of the scene that I will talk about as well, that is available on YouTube, so by Fredlo and Gray, so yeah, so look for it. So this book is about, yeah, Bass and Jerry. So Jerry is a so anyway, the start of the book is that they kind of hate each other. So and but she has to get his help on so she can make the grade, kasi so she can continue playing basketball, so she can continue with her other, but so in the scene preceding that particular scene in the live reading, and that particular scene that I find ang kilig, even even he kahit eat level zero, is so in preceding nun is that she found out that she didn't make the grade. So she was crying, and then Bass found her and asked her why she was crying, and then she didn't really like him, but then she felt comfortable enough to tell him everything, and then he asked her to that they go to get a mango shake. And and merong scene din sa, just check out the reading, the live reading. I don't want to live read it kasi Gray and Fred did a better job. But
They
yeah,
did a better
may
job.
scene. No, please look for it. Pero yung mango scene, may mango shake scene na yun, was very tender. May part pa dun na he told gave her the cup and made her try it. Tapos, oh, Kuya, what did you put in this mango shake? That was so cute. So, and after that scene, then, after, after that scene, then they also, she also felt comfortable enough to talk about her family, and he also talked about his past. And yun nga, I also just really love the scenes when yung walls are broken down.
Falling down.
Broken down by mango shake. So, shit, now I want mango shake. So yun. So and, and it's also very Filipino yung mango shake. So yun. So
Mm-mm.
when yun din, parang it really just also emphasizes why romance is a safe space for all, because in these scenes too, kaya naisip ko kaya sila very kilig din kasi it provides safe spaces for the characters to be themselves and still be loved. So yun. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we can okay.
Yan.
So
Okay. And
that's
another thing, we initially wanted to talk about particular scenes in our books, pero we will do something at the end of this. Yun na lang, yun na lang. So another thing, actually, when you think about it, Hello Ever After is very um, level zero. Although syempre meron silang landian comments. But if you think about it, these are small moments in our characters' lives that they are, just really doing what is best for the other person. Seeing each other with love. We wanted to actually, ang iniisip namin, yung Finding X, the safe space one. Kasi that's, love language ko kasi yun eh, yung dadalhan ka ng yung hatid ka, quality time, and acts of service. But yeah, so if you think about it, Hello Ever After is actually a lot of it, all of it. Obviously, because of our own restrictions, then are at this level, and we know with the reactions of everyone, it is actually very very kilig, di ba? Na parang I know na parang at a certain time, parang we watch it to we feel it, and there's there's no doubt that there is kilig there, even if we are just at this low level of heat. Ayun. And actually, that's where we end. So if you have any questions, you can comment there below. Kasi actually, indaldal nga natin, Leslie.
Sabi namin, 1 hour lang naman yung
Wala
panel.
lang.
Kaya, how are we gonna fill the 1 hour? So, parang okay.
Okay. Okay, sige na. Before we, kinabahan ako bigla. Before we go, while we're waiting for your questions, one of the things that we're planning to do before we end today is actually to read parts of our works in progress. So,
It's a
okay.
live reading you didn't
Yeah.
ask for, but we'll do it anyway.
Do it anyway. Well, this is the live reading. Siyempre, sino mauuna, Char?
Ikaw na.
Alphabetical to, so ako. No?
Oo.
Okay, sige. I'm seeing some questions come in, but sige, we'll do the read first and then we'll answer the question. So, okay. Napagod ka agad ako kasi I know this particular work is has been delayed for so long. But to be honest, Maya's book is actually level one. There is a backstory that we will not that is there that makes it level one. But the entire book is actually one. That's also one of the things why it's taking so long, because I'm trying to work out that particular issue. There's a part there na do they actually do it? Maybe not. Yung those things. So the scene I'm going to be reading, oh my gosh, is this is actually the part where the girl, si Maya realizes that she likes him. But previously, in the previous chapter, Joseph already realized that he has feelings for her. So this is the scene after. Um, Before, sige, I'll put the context. So she was walking home from Faith's house. So if you think about it, she's walking across, those who have been to Capitol Commons, she's walking across that line. So yun, that entire path heading towards San Antonio, Barangay San Antonio. So she's walking there and then she runs into Gabriel because Gabriel is hanging outside of a restaurant. And then Gabriel's like, can I walk you home because I'm not doing anything? And then she says yes. And then Gabriel goes in and then she goes out. But Gabriel doesn't go out. So yun, that's where I'll start. Okay. So this is from an excerpt from Win Maya Over. Eeh, stress. Okay. The door to Pia's restaurant opened again a few minutes later. But it was Joseph who emerged from the tinted glass door instead of Gabriel. His mouth was drawn back into its usual smirk, but when their eyes met, it softened, and he lit up. That was the only way she could describe it, as if he was happy. To see her? Surely not. She quickly pushed the thought away and scrambled to keep herself in check when he headed her way. Maya, Joseph, Maya, Joseph, she replied, clearing her throat when she realized she sounded breathless. You're here. I am. They stood awkwardly for a few seconds that Maya was almost tempted to laugh. He continued, how are you? Does your leg still hurt? So he noticed that. They were together at the airport in the morning, a bit in different flights. Why did that feel like it was forever ago? I'm fine. It's just a bruise, she answered. How about you? Anything hurt from the jump? Everything's working as far as I could tell, Joseph shrugged. So let's go? Go where? Gabe said you wanted company on the way back. Maya shook her head. I didn't. Gabriel said he wants to accompany me because he wasn't allowed inside. Well, he sent me out because he said he needed to talk to Pia. He said he was just going to tell them where he's going. Realization dawned in Joseph's eyes and he glanced back at the restaurant, forehead creasing as he muttered, Gabe, you're such a loser. Well, he didn't have to be so obvious at not wanting to be around her. Ignoring the surprise stab of hurt that came from somewhere inside her chest, she said, look, I told him I can take care of myself. You don't need to do what he said. You can go back inside now. She waved her hand once and turned to walk away. Maya, wait. A hand caught her wrist. She looked back at him, and even if he was standing about a foot away from her, the feel of his palm against her skin felt like he was standing so much closer. My best friend fails in subtlety sometimes. I'm sorry. I do want to walk with you if you're okay with it. Was she? Now she was confused. How could she feel so annoyed and hurt one second, and then so tingly at the next? Also, those eyelashes should be outlawed or something. Yeah, sure, whatever. She cleared her throat, then shrugging nonchalantly despite the quickening of her pulse. Could he feel it where he was holding her? She pulled her hand away, cheeks warm. Let's go. The rest of the way home wasn't too far. 10 minutes by foot if she felt like playing tag with the vehicles traversing the busy boulevard. An additional 15 minutes if she decided to be a law-abiding citizen and use the footbridge that went around the road and stretched across several streets. Maya was usually too lazy to do the latter, but tonight her feed led them to the giant steel structure. It's not working? Joseph asked when they stopped at the foot of the narrow, unmoving escalator in front of them, reminding Maya why she didn't use the footbridge often. It never worked as far as I know. She glanced back at him. If climbing up doesn't feel okay to you, we can take another way, or just jaywalk. I told you I'm not afraid of heights, he said. And no jaywalking. Don't you remember the last time we were both on the wrong side of the road? Maya couldn't help but smile at the memory. She headed up the steps, her legs straining with effort. It's always harder to climb up a stalled escalator than a regular stairs. When she glanced back to check on Joseph, she caught a small, satisfied smile on his face, and she wondered again if he was smiling because of her. And that's it. Mahaba pa siya. I'm stuck there.
Those eyelashes should be outlawed.
Bakit
I
kaya?
said, those eyelashes should be outlawed.
Bakit kaya? Okay. Go, Leslie.
All right. So the excerpt that I'll be reading from is so the story is entitled Finally Home, and it's one of the stories that will be included in the anthology for of about doctors written by us romance class doctors. So so backstory lang. The story itself is about Mayumi Angeles. She's a medical oncologist. Who's uh, who went for fellowship in Houston, and there she met Dr. Joaquin Gabriel, who who is one of her co-fellows, a radiation oncology fellow, and they're working with her on research. So the story itself is a second chance romance, so it's uh, flipping between two timelines. So the now timeline where they meet again after she leaves the U.S. And during the before before. So this scene was I wrote it because one of my beta readers asked for more before Landian. So shout out to Angeli Dumato. Thank you. This is all your fault. So so where they go for a group date group date with uh, to the Houston Museum of Natural Sciences. So but they were separated from their other friends, and they're now in the planetarium alone. So uh, they soon found their seats inside the planetarium, which looked like an ordinary theater at first. They engaged in a little small talk before the show started. She told him about how the Mummies of the World exhibit it reminded her of how no one liked bringing her to see horror movies because she kept pointing out how medically impossible some plot points were. And he laughed at that because that was the reason why he never watched medical shows either, because he kept pointing out what they got wrong. Then everything went dark and the show started. Mayumi's hands flew to cover her mouth as she stifled a gasp. When the night sky lit into life, it was even more beautiful than she imagined. She had been to a planetarium before, the one near the science high school where she studied, and that was a memorable experience, sure, but this was magical. The stars were so lifelike she almost felt like she was outside and gazing up into an actual night sky. She realized that maybe she missed this so much too, being away from it all, not worrying about her patients or the future before her. Someone was speaking now, giving them the promised tour of the sky, but she barely heard him, for Joaquin had inched closer to her, and she could no longer concentrate on anything else. Their arms were touching now, and this time she did not move away. He whispered in her ear the names of the stars and constellations they were seeing: Cassiopeia, Andromeda, Perseus. His voice was so low and soft, but somehow she heard each word clearly, each word making her heart beat ever faster, faster. Then Patrick Stewart spoke, and the tour of the night sky dropped to the star party, shifting the mood as dance music blasted through the speakers. That was Her voice trailed off, now unable to put into words what she was feeling. Even magical could not even begin to describe it now. I'm glad I went to see this show, she finally said. I'd been so caught up with work and research here because I knew I had to finish everything before my fellowship ends. But this, I would have really regretted it if I had missed this. I'm glad you liked it, he said, looking back up at the ceiling, where the star party still raged. This is actually my third time seeing the show. Ah, no, fourth. I always come here to see the planetarium whenever I get the chance to, and I've seen all the shows at least once. Wow, you really are a nerd, aren't you, Dr. Gabriel? She said with a teasing smile. Don't you get tired of seeing the show over and over? No, not really. Because it's beautiful every time, he said. But today was different. Different? She asked. How? He was looking at her now with such intensity in his blue eyes, and she had to concentrate on the dance music that now filled the room because his eyes were just so distracting. I don't know, he started to say, then stopped suddenly, his eyes widening, like he had just realized something huge, like he had found the answer to a question he had been asking for a long time. But what that question was, Mayumi had no idea. Joaquin, it's different, he said suddenly, all uncertainty now gone from his eyes. Because it's nicer looking at the stars with you. And that's it. That is my that is my excerpt from Finally Home. It will be out hopefully this year.
Binasa ko naman yun kagabi. Pero bakit gano'n?
So yun, kasalanan ni Angeli yan. She asked for
Ba
that.
yan?
I was happy to oblige.
Well, yes. So, but there.
And
My gosh,
so,
ano ba yan? Buti na lang meron akong kapunan. Okay, we have a question daw. At
yes.
malandi.
Oh, mga Hawkins are dangerous, yes.
Joaquin na Gabriel pa, no? How dare? Okay, do you feel any pressure to inject heat in your stories? I can
Mm,
answer. For Maya's book, yes. But to be fair, initially, when she told me her story, meron talaga. Pero parang I think it's a matter of kaya siya naging one because it's in a backstory. So I forgot to give the gist of it. Basically, Maya and Joseph have met each other years ago, like 2 to 3 years ago. They hooked up and then they saw each other again. But Joseph is supposedly have changed. Ano na siya? Hindi na siya playboy. But Maya doesn't believe in him. But they have to work together. So this is ano na, this book is set in 2017, 2018 because there are concerts. That's why there are concerts there. But I remember when I was plotting this, it took me like a really long time to decide what happens in like act 2 to act 3. Because a part of it, yes, it feels a little bit like a pressure in some sense. And also sometimes I have to admit now, syempre when you start seeing the new books coming out and then you start seeing that okay, every one of them are in the in the higher heat levels, parang maybe is it time for me to go there and everything. And then suddenly, yun. But I think personally, then again at the end of it, it's a choice that we have to make. So in the end, um, parang eventually we started thinking like when I was talking to friends, they decided na okay, let's they won't do it again because it's a thing that there were things mentioned prior to as the story goes on that wouldn't make sense if they decide to have sex in that book. So yeah. Sometimes yeah, there's pressure. Sometimes. Pero I think at the end of it parang you have at the end it's your choice eh. If you write something out of pressure, parang it's not going to come out natural, I think. Or it's not going to be true to what your story has to be. Yeah. Go Liz.
yeah. Yeah, let me answer din that. Yeah, kasi at this story that I just read, it took me 2 years and or more to write. May there's a particular scene there that I wasn't sure if so I was struggling if I should make it a higher heat level. And also because yung this anthology yung ages kasi ng mga characters are different. Like Angeli's story would be so pre-resident, so younger. Mine is older. So Ryan, I was also thinking na would readers like say na "Ah, they're consultant age na pero why is there no heat level scene?" So parang there was actually that pressure before, but then after thinking about it and after much discussion with with Anna, that's why we have this panel. uh, it is actually really a choice, and not yun nga, as why we wanted to emphasize with this talk, just because you're already a certain age, it's not a milestone that you have to reach. It's not, it's it's not so it doesn't make your choices less valid and also less killing. So yeah, so yes, there is a pressure, but hopefully we people now won't feel that pressure and would just write it if they want to write it and enjoy writing it, kasi yun nga, it is also true that if you don't actually like to write it and you're just forced to put it in, it becomes very technical and
Yeah, yeah.
clinical. I mean, if I would write it, I'd put all sorts of anatomic terms there. I would. I would. So and Angeli's asking, I'm thanking you because that scene, yung before
That's
Landian, was
interesting.
written because you asked for it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. I don't want to answer this question. What I say actually to this question is someday, I swear, as in magigising na lang kayo like, oh, pre-order, ano, hindi na siya pre-order link, like there, the link is just there. Uh, we will sometime, hopefully, not, I mean, part of me, gusto ko sabihin na sana like the pandemic has ended and then lalabas siya. But we don't know that. I can control the book. So, so yeah, I mean, I don't want to commit to a date, but it will just come out someday. Soon, I hope.
Yes, please. And when I was just reading the excerpt, sabi ko, grabe, miss na miss ko na yung mga books ni, ni Hannah, please. And, so, our books, well, yung RX Landian, which will reveal the title eventually. uh, our target is December this year, but malay nyo, biglang kaya pala namin earlier. So, let's see. Pero it's currently in dev editing, so this year is the target. Yun. Ako lang naman ang nagpabagal. Sorry at si yeah. But it'll come out.
Ayan.
You're welcome. Yes, she asked for more landi. Yes, and now it's a perfect example of landi that is hit level zero.
Fair, Ay, okay. Sige, may pahabol tayong question. Ay,
Yeah, more? Do you have any more questions to anyone? More tea?
sorry. I saw one
Yeah.
question lang from Angeli. I saw it kasi YouTube ko nandito. Opinion on heat level in
Ah, yeah.
YA books?
Oh.
Personally, well, ako, personally, because I can't help when I read YA books, I can't help but feel like ate nila ako and I kind of have to, children, behave. But personally, for me, if pwedeng hindi, if we can keep it at a low heat, then yes. But sometimes again, if sometimes it works in the story, it depends on what kind of story you're telling. But syempre, all the I mean, if they do it at a very young age, I would think that there should be not hindi sure like consequences to the choices that they make. Parang I feel like that should also be discussed. Because we have to be, as we have to be responsible then for like younger people. I feel like I'm such an ate saying all of those things. Ayun.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't. I mean, personally, I'd rather not. I know, but yeah. But I have read books that are. I know, have
Mm.
um dealt with this very nicely. Wait. What's the title of that book? Yeah. Uh, the one with the Rishi. I forgot.
When
um,
Dimple met Rishi Bada.
Yan, when Dimple met Rishi. So, yun, that was, so, yun, as long as you handle it also responsibly, although I think, though, in our particular cultural context, you have to take that into consideration as well.
Mm.
Kasi, sa Western, that's really more common, but in our particular cultural context, you'd also have to frame it there.
Mm.
So, yun, just be mindful of those kasi hindi naman tayo Americans. Yeah. So, yeah. And our and the end is not the title.
But why not?
Yun yung ano,
Okay.
subtitle. Sige.
Hashtag. Ayan. Okay, I think we've gone over time. So thank
Yeah.
you everyone for hanging out. Thank you for hanging out. This was fun. We had parang slightly cathartic siya. Okay. So ayun. So I hope to actually start updating more about the book. Maybe after the prompt and pairing for next week. But yeah, if you want to follow for like updates and other like updates, like I will post a picture of my dog later. You can follow me on Twitter, it's Time Anna, and Instagram, it's Time Anna. And also annatejano.com. So I've started blogging a bit more.
Uh, yeah, me, you can follow me on Twitter. My author page is at Lucky Chan. My pathologist Twitter account, if you're interested in that sort of stuff is at Celestine MD. People keep following me in Lucky Chan when so now they keep seeing my romance post. So but yeah, but go to at Lucky Chan, and I also have a website, Celestine Trinidad, bit.ly/Celestine Trinidad. So I post all my other stories there because I also write stories of other genres.
Yes. And later, please don't forget there's a panel later at 7 p.m. It's Maybe Judge a Book by its cover,
Mhm.
hosted by Mina Villas-Guerra with Carla de Guzman, Miles Tan, and Tanya Arpa. And
Yes.
that's it. Yes, he's better. He's actually, nandito lang yung aso ko. Umiikot lang siya. He's home, he's home. He's home. He hasn't pooped, but he's home. So, yun. Thank you,
Bye. Thank you,
everyone.
everyone, and for listening to our tea.
Yes.